Paris human rights groups are staging a demonstration this Saturday for the Uyghurs. They're an ethnic group in northwestern China under persecution by the Chinese government. There are accusations that China is committing mass human rights abuses and even genocide against the Uyghurs. The UN says that since 2018, China has detained more than 1 million Uyghurs along with other Muslim minorities in so-called internment camps where they are subjected to forced labor. And joining us now is Raphaël Glucksmann. He is a member of the European Parliament. Thanks so much for joining us. Why have you decided to take part in today's demonstration?
Because we want action now. We want Europe to be at the meeting point of history. A crime against humanity is committed right now in China for the last 5 years. And we didn't get yet the adequate response from the European Union. So what we want is to ban the importation of the product of slavery coming from China. What we want is a formal recognition of the crime against humanity that the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party are committing now in Xinjiang. And what we want is Europe to be true to its principles, even if some interests inside the European Union are so much connected to the Chinese government that they are actually fighting against these measures.
You're talking there about some concrete actions. Human rights groups are urging broadcasters not to cover next year's Winter Olympics in Beijing. Aside from bringing attention to the plight of the Uyghurs, what else can be done?
Well, what can be done is to understand that the European market is the first market in the global world. We are the first commercial power in this world. So what we can do as Europeans is to take commercial trade measures. And the first measures, Ursula von der Leyen announced it in front of the Parliament 2 weeks ago. It's an import ban on the product of slavery. If we do that, then we will oblige the Chinese government to rethink its policy, because at the end of the day it will have a cost. The problem that we have right now is that China can commit a crime against humanity without paying any form of cost for it. So now it's time to put a price on a crime against humanity.
When we talk about the story of the Uyghurs, do you think it's getting the kind of coverage it deserves? And if not, why do you think that is?
For a very long time, it was totally met by the silence of the big broadcasters in the West, but also by the silence of our political leaders. And this silence has come to an end thanks to the mobilization of hundreds of thousands of youngsters, especially of European citizens, that have made the Uyghur issue, that have put the Uyghur issue at the center of the public debate. So right now you have the beginning of an adequate coverage of the camps in China for the last year, but still it's not enough. And what people have to understand is that Uyghurs are not deported for what they have done, but for who they are, and that we are in front of typical crime against humanity, and a crime against humanity should concern the humanity in its entirety. So both the media but also the political class should be much more vocal about the crimes that are taking place in China, I think.
And part of that is that China has been engaged in a propaganda campaign. How successful do you think that has been in keeping this story out of the public light?
Well, Chinese propaganda is quite brutal, but I don't think it's very efficient. What I think is efficient is the fact that we have very big interests that are interconnected with the Chinese government. When we are in the European Parliament, for instance, we are not confronted with lobbyists working for the Chinese government. We are confronted when we want to take measures and pass legislation that will hurt Chinese interests. We are confronted with the representative of European companies. It's the problem in our debate. It's Volkswagen, it's Zara, it's Nike. It's not even the Chinese government or its lobbying effort. So what we have to do is to pass this regulation against the will, against the efforts of companies that are European companies. And that's the biggest problem. And the strongest embassies of Chinese Communist Party today are the big European companies that have interest in China, because China is essential for their production and essential as a market. And that's why they are confronting our efforts.
Okay, we want to thank you, Raphaël Glucksmann.